The upshot was me telling the story, which is what it's getting me to do, about when I was really young, and people had said to me, "Oh, Les, you know, you really got to see this guy Edward Weston, right? And there's none of his prints in this country at this time, right, John? I mean, none of his prints. Les, you go and see this guy Edward Weston." Oh, okay, right, all right. So I had to get a bloody grant because I had no money, and I had to go all the way to New York, and it was a heck of a lot in those days. It still is. And then I finally get there. I'm climbing up the steps of the Metropolitan Museum, the old Met, and because I've got a permanent display in there. And I go in there. You know, I've spent, like, I don't know, a week bloody well getting there, right? Real hard yucca. 6 months to get the bloody grantee, get the airfares. And I get up there and I start looking at these prints, and they're just these crappy little 8x10 prints. And there are things I couldn't give two hoots about. You know, shells in funnels and dead pelicans floating on rock pools. And I'm just going, what the hell is going on here? And with tears streaming down my face. And I'm going, God, what the hell is going on? I had to take myself off to the toilets, John, and give myself a good talking to. No Skype, no call a friend back home in those days, right? So I know I hadn't spoken to another human being for God knows how many weeks, but the point was, yeah, I walked back out there and the waterworks, I'm thinking about my dead father, oh my God. And after 3 days of this, yes, of acute personal embarrassment, yes, after 3 days of this, I smuggled some of my prints back in. I've got a t-shirt on today, it's an obsession, sorry, Christian, I've got a black t-shirt on, but I smuggled some of my prints in. And I would, even before the guards had found where to sit in the morning, I would hold them up next to the Westerns. I'm going, well, I've got exactly the same skin tone as he's got, I've got exactly the same sky. And then I just got it. It wasn't the values themselves, it was their associations. Now, dear old Frederickson, to me the greatest photographer of the 20th century, all those years I spent with him, we were cleaning up the back of his darkroom one day. It was about the size of this room, with a little sitting room, and the rest was just wine and books, and it was just... And David, his assistant at the time, and I were cleaning out and rummaging around in the back. And David said, "Let's look at this." He had a brown paper parcel. He opened it, and inside there were 13 of the finest Edward Weston prints I've ever seen. Some same image that I'd just seen in the Met a few months earlier, yes, but in even pristine condition. Fred in the 1930s had swapped 13 of his drawings with Weston. You know, and he spent a week with him to pick his brains. It took us maybe 2 or 3 weeks to get the courage to say to Fred, who was 75 years at that time, "Fred, what about those Westerns?" And when we finally did, the big man he was, he just towered over and he just said, "Oh, about those Westerns. We'll talk about those at some stage." And God knows, another few weeks went by, and one morning at breakfast, he leans across the table with his big bushy eyebrows and his 13 fluent languages, and he says, "About those Westerns. That's how I learned how to print." He had scoured the world when he got interested in photography in the early 1950s, and he found what he thought were the finest examples of modernism in photography at that time. And he picked, yes, he picked the gems out of Weston's oeuvre at that time. God knows how much those prints have been given now. Yeah,
and with those.
And so every test strip that came through his processing, he was comparing against the finest thing he had ever seen in the history of photography. No wonder he learned how to surpass Weston in the dark room within 6 months. Yes? True story. Now, Christian would not Frederick Summon by a million light years. But this came up in Brisbane, and I told that story, and then we went away and we were really remorseful and going, "Oh God, we said things like that," and of course people are then, well, what are we doing, chiding them into purchasing a bloody $3,000 print? No.
Well, we were.
They did work. But so then Pete came up with this awesome idea. He said, "Why don't we make a print, give them a printed novel?" And of course we feel really bad, so we now make prints and we're going to post them up to everyone who did the workshop in Brisbane as well. So that's what these prints are. They're just little lucky dips from us. Just little images from us, just shrunk down into an A3, rolled up with a bit of barrier paper to protect the surface. On platine, the same paper we've printed this show on there. And it's just a little gift to say hi, it's a little take-home thing, but it's also just that little benchmark that who knows, by holding your prints next to one of our prints, yes, what you might see and discover. We are useless creatures for absolute judgments. You know, colour only exists in our head. Look at politics, John. What a disaster. Yes? But we're really, really good at the where's wallets. Yes? We're finding differences. So do the Fred Summer and put one of your prints, not one of your prints, John, do it for just beyond belief, but yeah, put one of your prints beside one of our prints and just see what you can see, yes?
It's a lot better than us, ours, just don't tell us.
If it is, send us yours. No, I've got to add 30 seconds to that, because no, you're absolutely right, Pete. I found a feather on a beach many, many years ago, and it was off an albatross of some species, and it was this little like this. And it was the most unbelievably beautiful object I'd ever seen in my life. It was like silver itself. I photographed this for over a year, with every camera I owned. I made 11 by 14-inch contact prints of this feather, and day after day I would just tear those prints up and prefer to look at the feather and the prints. The day that I made a print of that feather, just on a black felt background, that just was even better than the feather itself, I realised I had got it. I realised I had arrived as a photographer. Yes? From that day on, I had transcended reality. Yeah, I'd taken it somewhere else.
And that's why the print will always survive.
Well, for me it will. So, if you make a print that just glows and has more presence and has more attachment and more meaning and sentiment and va-va-voom than our little print that we've given you as a gift, well, how awesome is that? Just don't be miserly and make sure you come and show it to us. Yeah? And so the world will go round again. And that's what we're